And one of the reasons why is because
we talked all this time and I didn't record the whole thing.
Are you serious? That's okay.
Yeah,
We can go back and do that. We can go back and do the first part.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you're just joining us on Celebrity+One, welcome. I do recommend that if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, go back and give those a listen. And of course, please rate, review, and follow. On this episode of Celebrity+One, I talked to my friend and actor Kevin E. West. He is the founder of the award-winning business organization, The Actors Network, and also the creator of the Actor MBA. He has over 70 credits as an actor in top TV shows like CSI Miami, Desperate Housewives, Lost, 24, and more. Needless to say, Kevin knows the business, and he has worked with some major talent. I talked to him about his experience as an insider in the entertainment business and what it takes to not only work in Hollywood, but the type of trust it would have to take for any type of relationship to survive in the industry. So, turn up the volume in your car and headphones because you're not going to want to miss this.
It's one thing to trust your partner, DeAnna. It is. But when the statistics are, why don't more celebrity people date people who are not in the industry or of a certain visibility? I'm not even going to say level. When you are with someone, you're around their family, and then you're around their extended family. If you're a multimillionaire and a movie star or TV star or whatever, and your partner is John Q. Citizen in some way, I don't believe that that is as much about the person you're with as it is about the rest of their world. I think something that I've seen associates and friends of mine is that they don't understand your world and the world you live in. And then they also are trying to obviously coattails and or dig into it. And it causes somebody, in my opinion, based on who you hang out with, just Thanksgiving or holidays or anything else, you're constantly having to watch what you say. Because to one of your other questions, the next thing you know, somebody's recording you and you don't know it. We live in a cell phone world, and people who live in that world all understand the necessity for discretion. And somebody who doesn't, even if they're not being purposefully an a-hole, when you're around people who are not of this industry and of a certain status, they don't even know that something they're doing could be very damaging to you in the world that we live in. So I think statistically, it's definitely not the same as opposites attract or people with similarities attract, because I absolutely believe two human beings can opposite attract. But the surroundings of this industry, I think, make celebrities more comfortable to be with somebody who also understands the surrounding of the industry.
I was giving you the silent snaps as you were talking about going to holidays. My friend Liz, who I did an episode with, was saying that same exact thing. It's not just that one person that you're seeing. You're getting involved with their entire family. And I'm sure there's got to be discussions that have to be had beforehand, like on what you can do and what you can't say. Please be mindful of this as respect and privacy. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it's just private socializing requires of the celebrity person in this partnership to in some way potentially feel like they live their life on eggshells. And some people have no issue with it. I have no issue with it. If I was a TV star tomorrow after all the television and work that I've done, I have no issue with it. But I'm also much older now. I don't know how I might have been about it if I had reached a level of success in my early to mid 20s. I don't know. I just know that per your question about the statistics of why couples are more industry than industry non-industry, I think that the extended family of John Q non-industry person is a huge factor in that, especially in cell phone world.
Right. Absolutely. So that leads me right into social media. What's your opinion on how social media has changed with celebrities having access to the general public and fans and vice versa?
a lot of what I've seen in the last 20 years is that a high percentage of people who are younger seem to believe that nothing in the world ever happened before they could see it on their phone. And it is simply not true. What I'm going to say is the word change gets used a lot when we talk about social media. And I personally feel that what social media has done mostly to human beings globally is just simply make us more aware of what most of us already knew in our private life. But I can go back to being a stand-up comic in the late 80s with, bad hair and parachute pants.
Can't touch this.
I owned a pair of
Yeah.
parachute pants.
So did I. Well, back then, I doing stand-up at a particular location I won't mention. And because I was there was a particular celebrity there at the time, which the paparazzi had a curiosity about certain issues that had been, and I got a phone call, random, blind, don't even know how someone got my phone number, and asked to be paid to out whether or not this person was drinking. So my point to you is that that's always been the case. It is, however, simply much more easy for that to occur today because of social media. And yes, people control what they choose to put out, but they can't control somebody talking to you at a bar and going, okay, well, who's that pretty young gal that person was talking to? And I think it has a massive effect. I do know somebody who's an Oscar winner who does not have one social media account. He will not do it. He has 2 kids. They're in college. He has a wife, and he simply doesn't do it. And it was something that he established a long time ago with his representatives, but he's an Oscar winner. And while there are also people, like my buddy Christopher Gorham, who get into politics on their social media. So I believe that it's a person's choice. But if you're just talking about what we would call the background or collateral damage, what's near you when you're out, I have no idea what the hell I might end up. But I do think that it becomes a hyper level of awareness. And I do think it limits some people on attending things in public in which they don't have the protection of the barrier for them. So I'm sure it causes a lot of people to choose to say no to going out.
Yeah. I had mentioned to friends and family as I was doing this podcast documentary, Evan Peters is a celebrity crush of mine. He used to have social media, and I don't really know what happened, but I like people that choose, I don't need to have this. It just seems that their lives may be a little bit more smooth.
Yeah, I think smooth is a good word. You have work, life, fandom, and then PR. If you're a working person in this profession or any profession that there's visibility to, you can absolutely have enough, quote unquote, let's say social presence. Like anybody can hear me doing air quotes as I say that. It's because of the PR that's around you. Paparazzi can do your social media for you if that's the way you want to play it. It's just a matter of how much you want your own social media from the work that you do or the life that you live in terms of part of just living your life. But I do believe that if you are uber successful or fairly successful and fairly active, all forms of hired PR can be plenty of social media that any one person would need in the world we live in today.
And a lot of people have their own PR people that handle their social media presence. However, I was contacted by this actor on Twitter when Twitter was Twitter. And obviously I was like, this isn't you. Long story short, it was him. So you would assume these people have their PR managers and handlers, but you can't always control what they're going to do because they're human. I mean, how many phones do these people have?
Let's just do this without this being related to Hollywood. In the high level world of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, they all have multiple phones. This is not an uncommon construct. They may not have 7 like they try to put in movies sometimes, but having a second phone or having a third that would be called a burner phone, I don't think that it's unusual for any one person of a certain elevated lifestyle or income to have more than one phone. And additionally, I can tell you this because I worked with a lady who, when she first broke out in Hollywood, was one of the most statuesque, gorgeous women I've ever seen. I did a movie with her 3 years ago, and she made a joke that while we have Instagram now, back in the day, not a joke, some men would literally have their PR person or their agent call a gal's agent and ask them out through their representative. This is not unusual. So now we just have social media if somebody wants to try to DM someone. But first of all, as a Southern boy, as a Tennessee boy, I find that absurd. Whether you know me well enough or not to know, I would never do that. If you were an actress on so-and-so show and I was dude on so-and-so and I wanted to ask you out, I would just find your ass at a party or something someplace and walk up and say hi. I would never do that, but people do.
All the time.
So, yeah, all the time. And it still happens right now, even with social media. So yes, I've said this since I started in this business. If you choose to get in this business and you want to be successful at it, for all that you can get paid, there is a price to pay. And that is that people are going to find ways to, quote unquote, be able to ping you. I'm going to use that as just a metaphor, but with all respect, I grew up in the era of the most serial killers in the history of this country. And so I don't believe this world is that much more dangerous than it always was for somebody of status. But you do have a lot more different angles that someone can get to you at. And it can be very distracting and annoying in terms of a filter standpoint. But at the same time, if that's what you sign up to do, then that's what you're signing up to do. It's just one of the things you have to deal with.
Hi guys, it's DeAnna here. Like what you've been hearing so far in Celebrity+One? We are looking for sponsorship. We would love to collaborate with local or national brands and businesses. Doing a podcast is no easy task, so to help us keep going and get the interviews you and I truly seek, we need your help. If you would like to advertise with us, please head to CelebrityPlusOne.com and click on the contact tab to email. We would love to showcase you and your business or brand on one of the best upcoming podcasts out there. Thanks for listening.
I think that people think that they have an idea of what they're getting themselves into, but then the gravity of the situation won't really hit them until it happens. You need to have good people around you to stay grounded.
Agreed.
Dating somebody who is of status, you need to have a good understanding of who you are and what your significant other's job is, and to be okay with that.
If we're in this business for a while, you usually run across at least one or two people. The question is, do you run across them when they're going through a divorce, post-divorce, pre-wedding? I try to keep things, and I always have, being a Tennessee boy, I try to make things as normal as I can, and that honestly, it's still a problem in every other industry. This profession does provide what I would say are a couple of unique elements of trust that other professions don't, even to the extent of being a musician. Everybody wants to date or hang out backstage with the lead singer as a metaphor. But what the lead singer doesn't do when they're singing on stage is they're not making out with somebody else. And the truth of the matter is just the job description of what we do. And I've done love scenes, can be very difficult on one's partner if they're not in this industry. It doesn't mean that they're not also difficult on people who are both in this industry. Insecurity is insecurity. But I do think that the two words that strike me with this question about trust come down to the non-industry person's ego and the focus of the industry person's adoration of the non-industry person. We're all human. We all want to be paid attention to. We all want to be loved. And I do think that if you're a non-industry person dating somebody who is well known, it can feel like there's another red carpet and another step and repeat and another thing you have to go to where all the cameras are flashing and literally somebody is putting their arm on you, the partner, and pushing you aside. Wow. I mean, that's a real thing. But at the same time, if I'm playing this really successful executive and you're playing my executive assistant and I have a wife or a girlfriend at home and I have to go to work and spend time with you physically on screen, not to mention that we're shooting in Romania or Hungary, and then we finish work and I'm 3 doors down in a hotel room from you, that can create a lot of trust issues just because of what actors do. You have to let your guard down to be a good actor. I've worked with people I didn't like that I had to be nice to. That's called pretending. It's called acting. But, your partner may not know that or may not trust that. You can say on the phone, listen, she's a pain in the ass, or he's a jerk, or someone can say all those things. But at the same time,
You're still
That's
there.
what they're still there. And that's what the access to and the reality of our profession does increase the insecurity and the issues with trust. And I do think that a lot of it will have to do with one's maturity, and some of that's based on age. I bring up Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz because, first of all, I had a huge, you mentioned a crush, so I'm going to say I had a huge crush on Rachel Weisz in The Mummy. I was losing my mind. But the funny part is that both she and Daniel Craig got together after they were both A-list stars. Now, we've seen that fall apart. We've seen it work. We've seen two young people work. We've seen two young people, I think, fall apart more often. And so all of them can work, but I do think the nature of the profession of a successful on-camera, A-level profession causes a lot of intimacy issues for trust and for partnership.
Absolutely. A unique example would be Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes. Eva was like, I'm going to take a step back and raise my family. And she does not want to attend red carpet events because she's at home, and that was her choice. And she's really content with that. She's doing her own things on Instagram and her own hobbies and things that she promotes. But that was kind of an interesting thing because it seemed that her career was having a certain momentum. And then she met Ryan when they did that film together. And then she was like, I'm going to make this choice because I want to keep this relationship. And there has to be a certain amount of privacy. And he supports her everywhere he goes. Like, I would want somebody like that. If I'm staying in the background and being supportive, they still have to be my number one fan. And he has no problem saying, my girl, Eva Mendes, I'm a real fan. And it's just, it was really cool to see that because you don't hear or see a lot of people.
No, you could even argue she even had more minimum than he in a certain moment. I do think it makes it easier to be supportive and step out of the light that you've already been in. It gets harder if your partner is in the light and you have never been. I do agree with you, however, that there is sacrifice and discipline in any relationship on both sides. So no matter whether she was already where she was or not, even stepping back can play on you and be a little bit difficult for sure. All forms of those kinds of relationships still can cause issues based on who you are. I was just at an event where I met Eva Longoria, and I did Desperate Housewives, but I didn't do it with her. But she was married to Tony Parker, who was the point guard for the San Antonio Spurs. To me, these days, when the overall thing is a little bit of social media and a little bit of statistics and a little bit of trust, I think that anybody who's in the public eye now, because of social media, that it's not all the same. Again, I clarified that based on what actors do for a job description. You have to be two pretty strong people and two pretty supportive people for that to survive. I think it can be harder on someone who's never been in the light and never been a part of this profession. And I applaud those who manage to make that work, because it's easy to say, well, it's Matt Damon's wife that winds up being the person who makes that work. And the answer to that is it does. But I still think it's a two-way street. Matt Damon has to be a guy who comes home and makes sure that he always reminds and is always there to ensure that that person does feel adored, that that person does have the proper focus that she has, that that person does know and trust that she is the number one person in his life as a partner. So it will always be a two-way street to me. I just think there are elements of it that can be both easier and a little difficult, depending if you're both in the industry or not.
It is talking the love language, how much they are loved, how much they appreciate them for doing what they do, but even more so because of the position that these people are in.
I would agree it's more so. Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen. I mean, you can't get, first of all, for either side or same side, again, don't care about sexual orientation. Two of the more attractive people, let's say, on the planet, it's not about money, not about lifestyle. It's not about being awarded or supported for your skill set. And they didn't work out. I look at that and go, just not about all these things that a lot of times in relationships we say is the problem. This is a communication and a relationship issue that I still will always feel either comes down from something not having a good foundation at the beginning, and or somebody is not properly communicating and supporting. That's what I tend to see be the reason. And or there's always this, DeAnna, and I don't want to leave trust There's also plenty of people on this planet and plenty of people in Hollywood who have accepted that when it comes to trust, they want the lifestyle, they want the adoration, they want the attention, and they've just let trust go. And that's one of the reasons why some of those actual relationships even exist. It's because somebody has, quote unquote, given up and they're both okay with it. I'm not a fan of it, but it does happen.
It's listener participation time. We are going to try something a little different here at Celebrity+One. I want to ask you, the listeners, one question per episode and then share those answers. So this episode's question is, who are two of your celeb crushes? And what film or TV show did you see them in that made you go, wow, that's one good-looking, talented person? Here's how to respond. Head to the website celebrityplus1.com and click the contact tab to email me with your name. I will only use a first name and where you're listening from, and of course, share your answers on the following episode. I look forward to hearing from you.
A lot of weird things happen. We talked about PR relationships that are just for PR relationships because you become either irrelevant and you have to be put back up to the spotlight. So we're going to hook these two people up and see what happens. Have you heard about Raya?
I've heard about it. I am not on it. I'm kind of an anti-dating app guy.
People are so afraid to talk about it. People who are on it currently, I was in contact with a couple of people and I'm like, hey, these are just the questions that I wanted to ask you about it. Nothing to warrant them to get kicked off of this app. But people are so afraid. Well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get kicked off. I don't want to lose my privilege to be on this dating app.
Most of the celebrities that I know today that would be defined as celebrities, from my 10 years of doing a celebrity golf tournament to just my working life and people that I know, most of them are taken. I don't have a lot of single celebrity friends. That's probably due to my age. I do hang out with people who are between 20 and 35. I do not have anybody who is associated with, let's call it a special enclosed dating app, although nothing about it surprises me because it goes back to your both lifestyle question and the trust question of, I need to be around people who understand the discretion of dating. So I certainly understand the quote unquote privileged dating app of the celebrity. And yet at the same time, I do kind of smile to myself.
We protect everyone's identity. We talk about things within legal bounds. So before I let you go, have you had an experience with seeing somebody or know of friends that have confided in you like, hey, I'm just kind of dealing with this in my relationship and things are hard because A, B, C, or whatever?
As a friend, I've dealt with a lot more of it. Part of that is because I am the founder of the Actors Network, and but a lot of it, honestly, DeAnna, came out during Me Too. That was a lot of where I think some of that's based on my age, that I'm not 22 when Me Too era, sort of exploded. I had established myself in this city, both from my career, but also my reputation as somebody who lives a fairly discreet life and is trustworthy. But I was more stunned at the number of people who came to me with, oh yeah, so-and-so did blah to me. So-and-so did, that came towards me a great deal. And to all of these conversations of trust and social media and statistics, it doesn't mean, we use the phrase strange bedfellows. And in this conversation, sometimes I think it feels better to a lot of people to associate with, be close to, or be intimate with somebody that can relate to some of the shit that has gone down, quote unquote, to somebody in Hollywood. Right. And that can also drive people dating or being together just because of an understanding standpoint. Because I've been inappropriately propositioned by men in certain positions more than once in my life. And I don't even look like Brad Pitt. So I can't imagine what some of those folks have dealt with. But comparatively, women as we know in the history of existence, are just 1,000, 10,000 times worse than what a man puts up with. So I had a lot of that come towards me during Me Too. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something interesting, people wanting things from you. I really believe that that's kind of a hard thing to deal with. Is this person really wanting to get to know me for me, or do they have other intentions? It's like, how do you dig through that list in your head of like, okay, I can trust this person. They really want me for me.
Let's just take you and I, for example. Okay. At the time that I met you, I built an award-winning organization. I had a ton of notoriety just within the construct of Hollywood, right? And you're this new person in Los Angeles. But I'm not built to utilize that kind of a position and take someone or take advantage of. That's just not the nature of me, but it would have been really easy to do. And even now, having been, let's just say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we met, the young man who came to Hollywood, even with the level of the way I grew up and being, I think, smarter than the average bear and not being a female, I still made mistakes. I still had people who took advantage of me. And trusting whether someone's being really sincere, whether they're just trying to play an angle, whether it is for me, and it has been for the last 2 decades, DeAnna, somebody's just being nice to me because they want to get next to all the people that I know, or someone's being nice to me because they don't really want to pay me for my expertise, which is part of my career. They just want me to be able to give them free advice, both from men and women. All of that is when there's a certain status level is concerned, and it is very difficult. And all I can say to that is just simply watch what people say very closely and then see if their behavior actually matches it. And I've been like that in certain ways, but Hollywood can blind even a smart person briefly. Don't get me started on relationships and men. I give both genders plenty of shit, and will continue to do so. And, men being jerks because we don't control sex has been something that's been around for a long, long time. The casting couch metaphorically exists in every industry. And so trying to find the sincerity in somebody or the integrity in somebody is very difficult, period. But my biggest solution to that is always make sure you take care of yourself, always work on your own self-confidence, always have things that you're doing that keep you healthy and whole, and then just listen to what people say and see if their behavior actually matches it. Because that's the only, and at the end of the day, it's still very plausible that 50% of the time or 70% of the time, someone will just be full of shit. Yeah. And that's just life.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Kevin, where can people find you if they want to find you? Do you have any projects coming up, anything that you'd like to share?
People want to find me. Well, on IG and TikTok and X, I still call it Twitter. The Kevin E is how you can find me on any of those. I am a longtime business of acting coach. So people can go to kevinewest.com. They can go to the Actor MBA. That's Mary Boy Apple, theactormba.com, or certainly theactorsnetwork.net. If you put Kevin E. West into Google, I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed my conversation with Kevin and thought he touched on some things that I had always been thinking about as far as the type of mindset and self-assuredness one would need to have as far as a non-industry person to possibly handle dating someone famous. Although I would have to say that I would disagree in only the slightest to the idea that celebs would only want to date other celebrities because they only understand the type of discretion one would need to have or understand and relate to. I feel someone who isn't famous could understand discretion. Granted, both parties would need to have that conversation beforehand and have a quote unquote plan of action if they were to move forward in having a relationship together. Which leads me to the future questions about signing NDAs and when are those truly necessary? And to answer those questions, I've reached out to some major talent agents, managers, and publicists to let us know how that all goes down. So stick around because that's all coming up on Season 1 of Celebrity+One. Celebrity+One was produced and written by me, DeAnna Cali. Sound production and editing by Sam Felman. You can help me get closer to interviewing these regular Janes and Joes and celebrities mentioned when you share, review, and subscribe to Celebrity+One wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have an experience with dating a celebrity? Have been on Raya the app? Or are on Raya the app and uncomfortable with sharing your experience? You can go to www.celebrityplus1.com and click the contact tab to get in touch. And remember, we always protect the privacy of those who want to share their stories. That's celebrityplus1.com. Hope to chat with you soon.